Chapter 12:26. She flipped through her clothes and found that they were all there. Under Yi Qianqian's gaze, Yu Lily felt uneasy. She pushed her and said, "What are you looking at?" "You have them, so do I, yes, but they're not the same." Yi Qianqian turned her head away and said, "Go inside and put them on." "I'm going out. I failed to spy on the enemy. It seems that there's nothing. Shinjilia is thinking too much." After she went out, Yi Qianqian looked at Shinjilia and shrugged. "Well, it's late. Go back to sleep. I'll go back with Lily. I'll wait for you. It's not good for a girl to stay in a room with a man." Shinjilia's eyes were full of vigilance. He looked Ming up and down with obvious disdain. Ming leaned against the headboard and ignored him. Soon, the bathroom door opened, and Yu Lily came out. Her hair was half wet and stuck to her head. As soon as she came out, she met Yi Qianqian's and Shinjilia's eyes. She felt her scalp go numb. "You, come here," Ming suddenly said and sat up. Ming suddenly opened his mouth and sat up. His blank eyes were unfocused, and he didn't know where to look. Yu Lily saw it clearly and silently gave Ming's acting a thumbs up. But how could she go over? Now that they had broken up, they had to find a logical time to get back together. Ignoring Ming, Yu Lily turned around and took Yi Qianqian's hand. "Let's go back." "Yes, that's normal." Shinjilia breathed a sigh of relief and turned his head to look at Ming provocatively. Ming looked a little angry, but he still clenched his teeth and didn't say a word. "Let's go. Have an early rest, blind man. We're going back to Kingstown tomorrow. Stay by yourself." Shinjilia waved his hand and followed Yi Qianqian and Yu Lily. Yu Lily didn't look back. Shinjilia noticed this small detail, and he finally relaxed after a whole night of anxiety. Behind the two women, and in front of the blind man, Shinjilia didn't hide his emotions. His mood was clear at a glance. Ming watched him go out, narrowed his eyes, and chuckled. Poor fellow, he really thought he had the upper hand. "Forget it, there will be time for you to cry." Yi Qianqian and Yu Lily were sent back to their room by Shinjilia. When she saw that Shinjilia had left, Yi Qianqian couldn't hold it in any longer. She pulled Yu Lily aside and asked curiously, "Hey, did you really bathe him? I heard from Shinjilia that you even helped him get dressed and undressed. Doesn't that mean you saw everything?" Hearing that, Yu Lily felt even more guilty. Not only had he seen everything, he had also done everything that he should and shouldn't have done. However, this was not the time to lose. Yu Lily coughed lightly, glanced at Yi Qianqian, and said, "It's not the first time he's seen it. His eyes and hands are not convenient, so I..." Chapter 12:27. He, isn't it just he? Yu Lily immediately thought of the famous comedian, Fei Yu. Smiling secretly, Yu Lily pushed Yi Qianqian away and said, "Cut it out. How long has it been? How is it not long? I locked Shinjilia outside for almost half an hour. When he came to find me, I was taking a shower." Oh, his face was green. "Poor thing." Yi Qianqian shook her head. "But your ex-boyfriend is also very good. Do you know what he said when Shinjilia asked him why he didn't open the door?" The soundproofing was very good, so Yu Lily didn't hear what they said outside. But, with Ming's wretched expression, Yu Lily could guess what he had said just by imagining it. "What does it have to do with me? Don't want to open the door for you?" Yi Qianqian gave her a thumbs up. Then, she mimicked Ming's expression and tone and said calmly, "I don't want to open it." Yu Lily smiled and looked as if she had expected it. She reached out and patted the pillow behind her. "Go to sleep. It's getting late." Yi Qianqian squinted and looked at Yu Lily suspiciously. "Your expression doesn't look like it when you talk about your ex. Don't tell me you..." "Oh, this girl has never been in a relationship. How can her eyes be so sharp?" Yu Lily turned her head and glared at her. She reached out and slapped her down. "What nonsense are you talking about? Seriously, Have you ever thought about getting back together with him? Go to sleep. We'll talk about this tomorrow. She was almost exhausted. She had gotten up early, and she had been dragged into the bathroom. Now, her body was sore and aching. You can sleep later. You tell me first. Yi Qianqian made up her mind not to let her rest. She pulled the quilt in her arms and asked, "That man is not a good person. If you get back together with him, Shenjilia will be too pitiful. Don't you see how good Shenjilia is to you? He likes you very much." Boss Qianqian, I'm so sleepy. I'm really sleepy. Let me go. Yu Lily was half awake. She put her hands together and said, "Can we talk about it tomorrow?" No. She was sent by Shenjilia. How could she go back to the organization without completing the task? But Yu Lily didn't want to talk to her anymore. She closed her eyes and looked like she was going to sleep. When Yi Qianqian saw that, she heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Tell me, do you still like that ex-boyfriend of yours?" "I like it." Yu Lily pulled a pillow over and put it under her head. "You should have heard that I'm his sugar mommy." Yes. He had heard a little about it. However, hearing it from Yu Lily's own mouth, Yi Qianqian was still a little surprised. He raised me for 3 years. He paid for my education, food, and life. He treated me very well, really very well. Yu Lily held the pillow, raised her face, looked at Yi Qianqian, and said, "When I met him, I was only 17 years old, and I gave all my firsts to him." Yi Qianqian hadn't expected Yu Lily to go into so much detail. She didn't know what to say. There was only one thought left in her mind: it's over. Isn't there no hope for Shenjilia? Then, will you get back together with him? Yes, of course he would. However, was it too soon to tell them that they had gotten back together? Chapter 12:28. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she immediately felt a little strange. Especially when she saw Yu Lily's serious expression, there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. This is the legendary envy, jealousy, and hate, enough. Yi Qianqian couldn't hold it in anymore. She reached out with both hands and pushed Yu Lily away. With a disgusted look, she said, "Enough. You reek of love from head to toe." Disgusting. When Yu Lily heard that, she shook her head sympathetically. She covered her head with the quilt and turned over. She regretfully said, "The anger of a single dog." When Yi Qianqian heard that, her eyes widened. She immediately crawled under the quilt and pinched her waist. Yu Lily was caught off guard and exclaimed. Then, she burst into laughter. "What are you doing? A single dog is not angry. It's jealous. You're already an ex, but you still can't forget him. Love your sister." Yi Qianqian quickly retracted her hand and hugged Yu Lily's shoulder from behind. "But to be honest, I can tell that your ex-boyfriend really wants to get back together with you. You didn't see the look on his face just now. He wanted to tie you up." "How could I not know?" Hearing Yi Qianqian's words, Yu Lily quietly smiled. "But if he treats you like that before, if he really wants to get back together with you, don't agree too quickly. Don't show that you can't have him." Hearing that, Yu Lily was embarrassed. With her back facing Yi Qianqian, she didn't dare look back and asked, "Why? Why? You are a comic book writer yourself. Shouldn't you be very clear about this kind of story? Men are all the same. They don't cherish things that are too easy to get. You must keep him hanging. Don't let him think that you are cheap, and don't let him think that you are only suitable for him. If you do that, your position in the future will not be so stable." Yu Lily felt a little speechless at Yi Qianqian's words. But what made her even more speechless was that she actually felt that it was very reasonable. "Then what should I do?" She was all ready. Yi Qianqian was completely unaware and said, "In fact, people are all the same. They all have bad habits. Especially men. Men like O Ming, who are rich, powerful, and handsome, all have one thing in common. That is, they are cheap. Ah. The more I can't get it, the more I want it. This feeling, at first, is dominated by desire, but it will slowly change. If I can't get it, it will become possessiveness, and if I can't get it, it will become a desire to conquer. As Yi Qianqian spoke, she stretched out her hand and slowly clenched it into a fist in front of Yu Lily. After the desire to conquer, it will slowly become a habit. When you get it again, there will be a kind of awe. It's not easy to come by, so I must cherish it. Do you understand? Yu Lily was stunned and turned to look at Yi Qianqian. She looked at her in surprise and applauded in admiration. Are people who have never been in love so imaginative? It's really great. Chapter 12:29. When Yu Lily heard that, she nodded her head cooperatively and gently comforted her. Yes, you're right. Shall we go to bed first? Yi Qianqian was even more annoyed when she heard that. She kicked her and shouted, "Get lost." Yu Lily's leg hurt from the kick. She blinked her eyes aggrievedly and quickly hugged her. Sister, you are my sister. Don't be angry, okay? Yi Qianqian was only a little displeased. She wasn't angry. When he heard Yu Lily's cowardly response, he rolled his eyes at her and flipped the blanket over. Go to sleep. Okay. Yu Lily couldn't have asked for more. She covered herself with the blanket and immediately turned around. However, even though he was sleepy, he couldn't fall asleep. His mind was filled with what Yi Qianqian had just said. Men's deep-rooted bad habits, they have one thing in common, they are despicable. The more I can't get it, the more I want it. TSK. Although Yi Qianqian didn't have any actual combat experience, she had to admit that the experience she had gleaned from the gossip was F*King reasonable. Yi Qianqian knew that she wasn't asleep, so she ignored her and closed her eyes to sleep. Suddenly, the phone that was charging on the bedside table rang. Then came the second, third, and fourth sound. Yu Lily covered her head and pushed Yi Qianqian. Cell phone. Yi Qianqian reluctantly crawled out from under the covers and picked up her cell phone. Just by looking at it, he straightened up and rolled on the ground like a carp. Yu Lily was shocked by Yi Qianqian's reaction. She raised her hand and slapped her across the face. What are you doing? Yi Qianqian wasn't in the mood to argue with Yu Lily. She read the message again and again, and her heart could no longer calm down. When Yu Lily saw her serious expression, she climbed up and asked, What's wrong? My sister, Yi Yu. The little actor who had just risen to fame. Yi Qianqian didn't look too good. She looked at Yu Lily with a grave expression and said, You're injured. Yu Lily was also shocked. She took the phone from Yi Qianqian. It was Yi Qianqian's father. Daddy, Qianqian, where are you now? Yo-Yo got hurt at work. It seems pretty serious. Daddy, I want to see her. Come with me. Below was a piece of news sent by Yi Qianqian's father. The headline was striking frowny face that was close. Yi Yu fell from a wire during filming and was sent to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Looking at the time, it was tonight. He clicked on it and saw what had happened at 9:00 in the evening. There was also a picture in the news. The red bloodstain looked shocking. Yi Qianqian had already gotten up to change her clothes. She said, I'm going back now. My father must be very anxious. I have to go back with him to see my sister. Are you crazy? It's already past 11:00. Where would you find a car to take you back? Furthermore, Yi Yu is filming in the studio. She must be sent to a nearby hospital. Even if you go there now, you won't make it in time. Yi Qianqian froze when she heard that. Yu Lily took the opportunity to calm her down and said, The most important thing for you now is to let your father settle down. Tomorrow morning, you'll take the plane to H city where she lives. Yi Qianqian thought about it and nodded. She picked up the phone and called her father. Yi Yu's incident had caused quite a stir in the industry. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion, and it also became a little popular on Weibo. Chapter 12:30. Kingstown, Imperial Pavilion Villa Complex. In the huge villa, only the master bedroom was dimly lit. The warm yellow light elongated the tall figure. In the room, the distinct lines of his muscles were outlined by the black satin nightgown. Hearing the urgent voice on the other end of the phone, the man slowly lit a cigarette. He didn't smoke it. He just held it between his fingers and allowed the white smoke to rise. GM Lee, what should we do? This movie is very important. The second female lead has a lot of scenes. If Yi Yu can't do it, we'll have to replace her. This person was personally sent in by this person. If they were to replace him, wouldn't it be a loss of face for this person? But, if he didn't replace her, how were they going to continue filming? Yi Yu's injury wasn't looking good. It would probably take at least 3 to 5 months to recover. Fortunately, it hadn't hurt her face. Otherwise, the girl's acting career would be worrying. Lee Jin-nan was silent for a moment. His brows furrowed slightly. He tapped his fingers on the table and asked slowly, "Have you informed her family?" The person in charge hadn't expected that Lee Jin-nan's first concern would be this. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I've informed them. I think her husband and parents have been informed." Got it. Keep an eye on her and try your best to satisfy her needs. Yes. Yes, but the director of this movie is asking for your opinion. Should we replace her or, replace who? There's a pretty good actress in our company recently. She's as famous as Yi Yu. She has already gone to the director for an interview. She can replace Yi Yu's position. It was obvious that they had already prepared everything and were just waiting for his help. Lee Jin-nan suddenly chuckled. He flicked the ash from his cigarette and said, "Replace her." Yes. The person in charge finally breathed a sigh of relief. "I'll make the arrangements then. Goodbye, GM Lee." Lee Jin-nan couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. He hung up the phone and tossed it onto the bed. With the cigarette between his fingers, he lay down on the bed. Yi Yu is injured. Lee Jin-nan reached out and massaged his temples. Even he didn't know what he was feeling. She was the first woman. The only woman. But, she was already married. The reason Lee Jin-nan hadn't had any direct contact with her recently was to avoid arousing suspicion. However, the care he gave her behind the scenes was also a source of gossip. Many people were guessing whether the CEO of NC was interested in this small celebrity. Gradually, the rumors started to spread. Even Qin Shuhua came to ask him if he had anything to do with the girl. It wasn't easy for him to get away with it, and now something like this happened. If he specially went to H City to see her, it would definitely cause trouble again. With a heavy sigh, Lee Jin-nan's temples throbbed. Yi Yu's injuries weren't light, but they weren't serious either. He had a concussion from the fall and was still in a coma. His leg bone was slightly fractured, and there were many abrasions on his body. It looked like he was covered in blood, but fortunately, it was not serious. Yi Qianqian had caught the earliest flight over. When she heard that Yi Yu was well, she immediately reported it to her father. Unexpectedly, Yi Qianqian bumped into a familiar face as soon as she returned from her phone call. Chapter 1231. When Yi Qianqian saw the expression on Shen Luo'an's face, the anxiety and anger that had been suppressed in her heart for a long time suddenly erupted. He quickly walked up to them in an aggressive manner. When the young doctor saw the state Yi Qianqian was in, he felt his hair stand on end. When Shen Luo'an turned to look at Yi Qianqian, he saw that her face bore some resemblance to Yi Yu's. He roughly knew who she was. Shen Luo'an. Yi Qianqian's voice was not loud, but it sounded a little fierce. Shen Luo'an stood there with his hands in his pockets. He looked at Yi Qianqian and raised his eyebrows. "You're Yi Yu's older sister, aren't you? The capital is only 2 hours' drive from H City. Yu has been in a coma since last night. As her husband, why did you only arrive now?" And with that expression, people who didn't know better would think that he was here to collect a debt. The more Yi Qianqian thought about it, the more she felt that it was not worth it. This guy, is really annoying. Fortunately, Yi Yuyu was deeply in love with him. She had always dreamed of marrying him since she was young. She didn't expect this guy's true colors to be so despicable that he would even lay his hands on his own sister. He was simply inhumane. When Shen Luo heard Yi Qianqian's words, his face was cold and expressionless. He said, "Aren't I here now?" "You." Yi Qianqian suddenly felt infuriated. Just as Yi Qianqian was about to say something, Shen Luo suddenly walked around her in the direction of the ward. He raised his voice and said, "I'm here, but I'm still unconscious. You should save it. You've been schemed against by Yi Yuyu since you were young. How can you pretend to be a good sister? What's the meaning of this?" Yi Qianqian shouted at Shen Kuan's back. However, Shen Luo had already entered the intensive care unit. Yi Qianqian stomped her foot and followed him in. Yi Yuyu wasn't particularly popular yet. She didn't have an assistant of her own, and her manager was busy with all sorts of public relations. She had no time for that. Did Yi Yuyu lie there alone the entire night? When Yi Qianqian thought of that, she felt even more indignant for her friend. Poor girl. She's not a bad person. Why doesn't anyone care about her? It was all Shen Luo's fault. Yi Qianqian was even more annoyed. When she walked in, she saw him looking down at her from above. Yi Yuyu, who was lying on the bed, had already opened her eyes. Seeing this, Yi Qianqian was overjoyed. She immediately turned around and ran out, shouting, "Doctor, the patient is awake." However, Shen Luo remained standing. He had no intention of notifying the medical staff. Yi Qianqian looked at the man in front. Shen Luo looked as if he was being torn. Yi Yuyu. Yi of the man's eyes. Shen's face, Shen, and said. Shen. Shen. The man in front of her was expressionless. Other than the coldness in his eyes, there was nothing else. I said, Yi said, I, Shen was, Shen on. Shen Luo, Shen Luo stepped forward and raised his eyebrows slightly. I thought I'd see your corpse when I came here. I didn't expect that to be the case. Yi Shen felt. His. Shen felt, Qian was. The sound of the heartbeat machine beating rapidly was a far cry from the previous calmness. Chapter 1232. Yi Yuyu's eyes turned red, and tears began to flow. Looking at the man in front of her, Yi Yuyu's heart, which had finally calmed down, began to ache again. Shen Luo. Yi Yuyu's voice wasn't loud, and it sounded weak. As she spoke, her head hurt uncontrollably. It was as if the vibration of her vocal cords was stirred. Yi Yuyu couldn't help but squint her eyes. She felt as if she was going to faint again. Huh? Shen Luo's face was full of surprise. He smiled warmly, but his eyes were cold. Now, you don't even call me Brother Luo. You can't pretend anymore? Yi Yuyu's head was buzzing. She stared at Shen Luo and tears slipped from the corner of her eyes. The sound of footsteps could be heard from outside. Soon, a doctor and nurse came in. Yi Qianqian followed closely behind and looked at Yi Yuyu. Yi Yuyu's eyes seemed to be nailed to Shen Luo. She couldn't look away. Shen Luo's eyelids were gently closed, and an inscrutable smile hung on his lips. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and turned to walk out. The abnormal heartbeat on the heartbeat monitor revealed her mood swings. Yi Qianqian watched Shen Luo walk out and felt a little regretful. If I had known, I wouldn't have let him in. Seeing Shen Luo walk out, Yi Qianqian followed him. Shen Luo heard the footsteps behind him and suddenly stopped. With his back turned, he said, "Since you're Yi Yuyu's sister, I'll have to trouble you for the next few days. I still have things to do. I'll pay the hospital fees until she's discharged." In other words, he doesn't intend to stay here to take care of Yi Yuyu? Yi Qianqian's eyes widened and she flew into a rage. She is your wife. Where are you going to fool around? What could be more important than your wife's life? Wife? Shen Luo and seemed to have heard a joke. He chuckled and turned to look at Yi Qianqian. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Maybe she treats me as her husband, but I've never treated her as my wife. Yi Qianqian's lungs were about to explode. She had never seen such an abominable man. How could such a guy be worthy of such a good woman as Yi Yuyu? You scum. Yuyu has liked you since you were a child, and this is how you repay her. If you don't like her, why did you marry her in the first place? Aren't you being cheap? Yi Qianqian's words were sharp. Even the volume of his voice was not small, considering that this was a hospital. When Shen Luo heard this, he turned around slightly and glanced at Yi Qianqian. Especially when he saw Yi Qianqian's furious expression, he smiled warmly like a spring breeze, but the words that came out of his mouth were hard to tell if he was praising or criticizing her. They really are sisters. Their personalities are similar to when she was young. When Shen Luo said this, an indescribable emotion flashed across his eyes. It seemed to be nostalgia and tenderness. But soon, he turned around and walked forward. She wanted me to marry her, so I married her. I owe her that. The current Yi Yuyu was much more hypocritical than her. She was becoming more and more of a hypocrite. Chapter 1233. Did I not take responsibility? Shen Luo stopped in his tracks and looked at Yi Qianqian with a faint smile. Yi Qianqian became even more furious. She roared, "What kind of responsibility is this? Yi Yuyu is lying inside. I wasn't the one who asked her to lie in there. What's the point of getting angry at me?" Shen Luo didn't look guilty at all. He raised his eyebrows and asked confidently. The expression on Shen Luo's face became more and more strange when he felt the gazes from all around him. It was a smile that was not a smile. It seemed sinister and cold. It didn't feel like he was facing his wife at all. In fact, it didn't feel like he was facing a friend. Instead, it felt like he was facing an extremely disgusting person, a person that he hated the most. I will pay for the medical fees. If you don't want to take care of me, I can hire a caregiver. Please just tell me. For a moment, Yi Qianqian didn't know what to say. To think that a husband would have such an attitude when facing his heavily injured wife. When Shen Luo saw that she had nothing else to say, he turned around and quickly left with light footsteps. His figure was elegant and his figure was tall. Just looking at his back was enough to make people unable to come back to their senses. But, why was it like this? The man Yuyu loved shouldn't be like this. Yi Qianqian was a little absent-minded. She turned around and returned to the ward. After a series of examinations, the doctors and nurses reminded Yi Qianqian of a few things to take note of and quickly left. Yi Yuyu fell asleep again. Her eyes were watery, and her face was pale. Yi Qianqian's heart ached even more. Suddenly, the cell phone in her pocket rang. Yi Qianqian was shocked. She quickly grabbed her phone and walked out. It was Shenjilia. When Yi Qianqian saw Shenjilia, she couldn't help but feel angry. Shen Luo and Shenjilia were brothers. Yi Qianqian picked up the phone in a huff and snapped, "What is it?" Shenjilia was baffled by the roar. He was stunned for a moment before he asked, "How is my sister-in-law now? Is it serious?" When Yi Qianqian heard that, she laughed angrily. "So, you still know that she's your sister-in-law? Do you know what your sister-in-law has just gone through? Do you know what your good brother told me? Why is there such a big gap between the Shen family? Tell me. I think you're still a decent person, but why is your brother like this? Bah, scum. Scum. Bastard. Beast. Scumbag." The more Yi Qianqian scolded him, the more fervent she became. In the end, she was so angry that she stomped her foot and yelled, "I'm so angry." Shenjilia was baffled by the scolding, but at the same time, he found Yi Qianqian inexplicably adorable. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. Unexpectedly, it made Yi Qianqian even more displeased. What are you laughing at, you beast? You're not a good thing either. Hey, hey, hey. It's one thing for you to scold my brother, but what you're doing is implicating the innocent. What did I do? You've wronged me. Shenjilia shouted. What happened? How is my sister-in-law doing? Yi Qianqian angrily recounted everything that Yi Yuyu had said to her, as well as Shen Luo An's attitude toward her. The more she spoke, the angrier she became. She was on the verge of scratching the wall. When Shenjilia heard that, he coughed lightly and said, my brother didn't particularly like my sister-in-law to begin with, so, therefore, he was not surprised at all that she would say such a thing. Chapter 1234. What she said, Shen Luo An was his brother. Shenjilia felt that she was scolding him when he heard her scolding him so righteously. However, Shenjilia couldn't say a word. After all, Shen Luo An didn't treat Yi Yuyu very well. Yes, yes, yes. Don't be angry. How is she now? Shenjilia quickly changed the topic to Yi Yuyu. After they chatted for a while, Shenjilia hung up the phone. Yu Lily clearly saw Shenjilia breathe a sigh of relief when he hung up the phone. The table was full of dishes, and old Mrs. Shen ate them with relish. Now the four of them were sitting at a small round table, facing each other. Yu Lily and old Mrs. Shen sat on one side, and O Ming and Shenjilia sat on the other. Old Mrs. Shen was eating when she noticed that Shenjilia had hung up the phone. She asked, how is the girl now? She seems to have a concussion, and her hand is fractured, but it's not particularly serious. She should be discharged in a few days. How could it be so serious? Isn't she a big star? Isn't she just filming all day? Why is she in such danger? Grandma, it's not that simple. Don't those big stars always fly around the mountain? They all need to hang a wire. This time, sister-in-law accidentally fell from the wire, and that's why she was injured. Shenjilia put food in the old lady's bowl and said, nothing is easy. Oh. Old Mrs. Shen ate and asked, where is she? Did your brother go? Yes. He paid the medical fees and left. Shenjilia also heard it from Yi Qianqian. He felt a little sympathy for Yi Yuyu. When old Mrs. Shen heard this, she sighed and said, what a sin. Isn't it a sin? Yi Yuyu was injured, but Shen Luo An only paid the medical fees and left. Moreover, the capital was only a 2-hour drive from H City, but he waited until noon the next day. Yu Lily didn't know about their family affairs, so she didn't interrupt. She put some food in O Ming's bowl and lowered her head to eat in silence. Shenjilia clearly saw Yu Lily's actions, and his eyes were a little sad. This woman still couldn't let go of O Ming, right? No matter how O Ming treated her, there was only one man in her heart. Shenjilia felt a little frustrated. He also picked up a few chopsticks and put them in O Ming's bowl. He said, eat more. Don't be picky. I'll take you back to Kingstown after eating. O Ming didn't say anything. He pretended not to notice Shenjilia's deliberate behavior. He picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. Is your hand better? Yu Lily asked. O Ming's hand, which was holding the chopsticks, paused for a moment. He quickly put down the chopsticks, spread out his palm, and said, it hurts. I think I have a blister. When Yu Lily looked over, Shenjilia felt displeased. He reached out and slapped O Ming's hand away. Eat your food. You're a big man, what's the point of being sentimental? It's fine as long as you can use it. O Ming curled his lips and said, you're jealous. Jealous my ass. Let's eat. Shenjilia shoved his chopsticks into O Ming's hands. He was extremely unhappy. Chapter 1235. O Ming had already expected this. Shenjilia couldn't wait to send him away. When he heard this, O Ming wasn't surprised at all. O Ming calmly sat where he was and said, actually, someone has already come to pick me up. You can ask Yu Ruoxin to contact Uncle Wen. Since they're here to pick you up, why would they contact Lily? Can't you contact them yourself? Shenjilia clearly didn't believe him. I don't remember his number. I don't have a phone, Oh Ming said matter-of-factly. When Shenjilia heard that, he looked at Oh Ming with a faint smile. He picked up his phone and sent a text to Yu Lily right in front of Oh Ming. Oh Ming said he wanted to contact Uncle Wen. Send me Uncle Wen's phone number. When Yu Lily saw that, she didn't suspect anything and immediately sent the number over. When Oh Ming saw this, he had a new understanding of this. This fellow was so cunning. After Shenjilia called Wen Fenglin, he handed the phone to Oh Ming. Oh Ming took it and called out, Uncle Wen. Xiao Oh, how are you getting along with Lily? It's pretty good, but Uncle Wen, where are you now? I'll let you Lily take me to you, and then we'll go back to Kingstown together. Oh, that's good. Wen Fenglin gave them the address. It was at the Art Association in N City. After hanging up the phone, Oh Ming could clearly sense Shenjilia's displeasure. But he still pretended not to know and said, call you Lily and ask her to take me there. I'll take you there. My grandmother likes Lily very much. Let them play for a while longer. Yes, I can see that your grandmother is planning to change her surname from Yu to Shen, right? Take her in as an adopted granddaughter or something? Of course not. Even if you change your surname, it will be recorded in my household register. The meaning of these words couldn't be any clearer. However, when Oh Ming heard that, he laughed and said, it should be noon now, right? Are you sleepwalking? Shenjilia's eyes turned cold. Just wait and see. Lily won't choose you again. Sooner or later, I'll deal with her. Can you handle it? Oh Ming raised his eyebrows. His eyes were unfocused as he looked ahead, but his smile was bright. Shenjilia decided to ignore him. He stood up and left. She had no intention of taking Oh Ming with her. Oh Ming pretended not to know and sat in the same place, listening to the movements around him. Just wait, Yu Lily will be back. Shenjilia was digging his own grave by leaving a blind man like him there. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Shenjilia returned with an angry look on his face and demanded, why didn't you follow me? When did you leave? When Shenjilia heard this rhetorical question, he didn't know what to say. The sound of light footsteps came from behind him. It was very familiar. Shenjilia turned around. It was Yu Lily. When she saw Shenjilia, she said, Grandma is alone in the room. You go and keep her company. I'll take him to Uncle Wen. Shenjilia nodded and said, yes, Grandma is alone in the room. So, they still had to be alone? How could this be? Shenjilia quickly said, I'll go with you. You stay here with Grandma. I'll bring him to the Art Association to find Uncle Wen. I'll be back soon. Yu Lily looked at Shenjilia and said, Grandma is getting on in years, so it's better that she doesn't follow us around. I just told Grandma that I would bring a cake back. You can bring a piece back. I'm leaving now. Chapter 1236. When Shenjilia saw that, he felt even more depressed. He stepped forward to stop Yu Lily and said, wait a minute. Huh? Remember to give me a call if anything happens. Okay. Yu Lily smiled. She held Oh Ming's hand and walked forward. She patted Shenjilia on the shoulder and said, nothing will happen. If there's anything I can't handle, I'll give you a call immediately. Okay, but if this guy bullies you, don't hold back. Beat him up. Yes, yes, yes. Yu Lily held Oh Ming's hand and walked forward. She turned her head and waved at Shenjilia. After they left the hotel, Yu Lily flagged down a taxi. She shoved Oh Ming in and got in herself. Shenjilia was still watching from behind. Yu Lily waved until he was out of sight. She then retracted her hand. Oh Ming pulled her over and fell on top of her. You're still waving. Even if I wasn't blind, I'd be blinded. Yu Lily pushed him away in disgust and said, "You're so heavy. Get lost." "Is it heavy?" Oh Ming immediately straightened up and pulled her over. "Then, you can lean on me." Yu Lily was still annoyed and asked, "After you go look for Uncle Wen, are you going back to Kingstown?" "No, Uncle Wen still has things to do at the art association. They're old friends who haven't seen each other in decades. They must have a lot to talk about. We'll just find a comfortable hotel nearby to stay. Let's go together." "That's not a good idea. I just told Shinjilia that I'm going back." "Tell him that you're not going back." "That won't do. Won't they know that we're back together again?" "It's good that you're back together. It's not the first time we've gotten back together. What's there to be afraid of?" Oh Ming appeared very calm. He held her with one arm. "That guy is still daydreaming. It's best that you clear things up with him. If he thinks he has a chance and pesters you, you'll know that you're in trouble." "No way. Shinjilia is not stupid." Yu Lily pinched his nose. "But when are you going to be honest? Everyone thinks that you're not over yet. What will you do when they find out?" "Once my mother is settled, everything will be fine." Oh Ming hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. "I want you to be a legitimate member of our family. I want my mother to have nothing to say." Yu Lily touched her face and saw the driver's ambiguous gaze. She blushed and pushed Oh Ming. "There's someone else here." Oh Ming was even more presumptuous. He nibbled on her face and said, "Uncle Driver is an experienced man. He's already used to it." Yu Lily blushed and pushed him away with both hands and feet. Oh Ming laughed and stopped teasing her. He let go of her and said, "Does Shinjilia's grandmother like you very much?" "It seems so. I don't know why, but I've unwittingly become friends with her." Yu Lily was in a passive position when it came to this friendship that spanned generations. "Why are you suddenly asking about this?" "I was thinking, since she likes you so much, you can ask her for help." "What?" Oh Ming did not answer. He turned to look at Yu Lily and said, "I sent someone to investigate your background. After nearly half a year, I finally found some clues." Yu Lily was stunned. "What clues?" Chapter 1237. Hearing that, Yu Lily held her breath and looked at Oh Ming in disbelief. "You found her?" 25 years ago, there were no closed roads everywhere near the orphanage. It was very difficult to find an abandoned baby in a situation where no one saw it. It went without saying how difficult it was. But Oh Ming could find her. "Yes, I found her." Oh Ming reached out and gently touched her cheek. "She's doing well." "Is it, the woman who gave birth to me?" In other words, it was her mother. Was it her mother? The word mother was too far away from Yu Lily. It was too far away. She had never said that word since she was a child. She thought that such a person should have died long ago. She didn't expect that Oh Ming would find her. Oh Ming could clearly sense Yu Lily's emotional turmoil. He gently stroked her head and said, "Yes, but she's not your mother." "How could it be? Since she gave birth to me, who else could she be but my mother?" Yu Lily was a little emotional and shouted. "Shoo!" Oh Ming pointed to the driver in front and said, "Don't get excited. Listen to me slowly. Go ahead." Although Yu Lily said that, she was not calm at all. She held Oh Ming's hand tightly with both of her hands, which undoubtedly revealed her nervousness. "She is the woman who gave birth to you, but she is not your biological mother. You have no blood relationship with her at all." "What do you mean?" Yu Lily felt a little difficult to digest. How could it be? She is a surrogate mother. Back then, she helped someone else give birth to you. That is to say, she helped your biological mother give birth to you, and she just lent your mother a belly. Surrogate mother? Isn't that illegal? At that time, it was not illegal. Oh Ming tapped her forehead. The woman refused to tell you the specific situation. She wanted you to see her in person. She wants me to see her in person? Where is she now? In F County. She's the mother of 2 children now. They're both older than you. You're her last child. After you were born, your biological mother didn't come to look for you. With her living conditions, it was impossible for her to raise a child who was less than a month old. Oh Ming stroked her hair and continued, back then, the cold wave was very strong, and F County was just a small village. There were originally 3 children, but one froze to death. Was that why he had abandoned her? The year she was born, the cold wave had indeed frightened many people. It was a rare snowy day in 100 years, yet she managed to survive. What about my biological parents? Where are they? Lily couldn't tell what she was feeling. At this moment, she was sad, and even, looking forward to it. What were they expecting? All these years, her biological parents had never appeared, nor had they raised her for a day, nor had they fed her a mouthful of milk. Now that she had survived all by herself, did it matter whether they appeared or not? And now, she was actually looking forward to them. Chapter 1238. I don't know. All I know is that you're not that woman's child. I used your hair to do a DNA test, and it's confirmed that you're not. Lily was a little disappointed, but she knew the implications and didn't say another word. Let's go take a look together after we're done with my mother. Lily nodded her head. She still had many thoughts about her biological parents. The taxi stopped very quickly. Lily paid the fare and got out of the car. She walked shoulder to shoulder with Oh Ming to the place Wen Fenglin had mentioned. The Art Association. Any artist would want to enter a place to record their name. Lily was no exception. Looking at the grand entrance, Lily's heart was filled with longing. Everyone wanted to come to a good place. She called Wen Fenglin. He was chatting and drinking tea inside. When he received the call, he immediately came out and led the 2 of them inside. When they entered, they realized that there were many people inside. Lily didn't like such occasions, but Oh Ming seemed to know many people there. As soon as he entered, many people recognized him and shouted, Lil Oh? It's really Xiao Oh. What happened to your hand? What happened to your eyes? Oh Ming was still pretending to be blind. After all, the elders in front of him were old friends with Xiao Ziqing and Oh Huijin. The circle was only so big. If word got out, he couldn't continue pretending in front of Xiao Ziqing. The group of elders greeted Oh Ming's colleagues and didn't forget to tease Lily. Lily was afraid that Oh Ming would give himself away, so she quickly found an excuse and said that she wanted to leave. Wait a minute. A young voice called out to Oh Ming and Lily. Since you're here, let's sit together. My father isn't here yet. She turned around and saw a young man in his early 20s. His features weren't outstanding, but he had a clean demeanor. Wen Fenglin quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. Xiao O isn't feeling well. He should be taking a break now. Lily's handling of such an occasion was a little awkward. It was obvious that she wasn't used to such occasions. Wen Fenglin could tell at a glance. He couldn't allow her to stay any longer. However, Zhenli didn't want to let them off. He looked at Lily and said, I think this lady looks familiar. I wonder if we've met before? When Lily heard that, she felt a little embarrassed. When Oh Ming heard that, his face darkened. He pulled Lily aside and said, You haven't seen her, have you? I've never brought her here. Oh Ming's hostility was so obvious that Zhenli's face immediately became hot. He said, I didn't mean that. I really felt that she looked a little familiar. I wasn't trying to hit on her. Lily also felt that Oh Ming's reaction was too much. She pulled him back and reached out to pat him. In a low voice, she said, Speak properly. This was the place that Uncle Wen had brought them to. What if they embarrassed Uncle Wen? Lily looked at Zhenli with a smile and said, Perhaps you've seen the news some time ago. My relationship with Oh Ming was quite a hit recently. You must have seen my photo. Zhenli nodded. Was that so? However, Zhenli felt that it shouldn't be so simple. But he just couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Chapter 1239. That should be the case. Yu Lily smiled and pressed O Ming's hand down. I'll take O Ming to rest first. Okay. Zhenli nodded his head and watched them leave. After sending Yu Lily and O Ming off, Zhenli couldn't sit still any longer. After saying goodbye to Wen Fenglin, he quickly drove back home. Zhen Xianlang had just arrived home. He had intended to take a good rest and leave everything to his son. He hadn't expected Zhenli to return home as well. When he sensed his son's return, Zhen Xianlang was clearly unhappy. In a stern voice, he asked, "Why are you back? Did you leave the people from the art association behind?" "I asked Uncle Wen to help me take a look," O Ming said. "Dad, can you show me the photo you showed me before?" "What photo?" "It's the photo of your wife before you married my mother." After Yu Lily led O Ming out, O Ming quickly grabbed her hand. His footsteps were quick, and he looked unhappy. "Wait a minute. Why are you walking so fast?" Yu Lily's steps were a little shaky. She couldn't keep up. "Uncle Wen is still there. Did you talk to him?" "No." O Ming's face was stern. He turned to look at Yu Lily and said, "That man was obviously hitting on you, and you smiled at him. That's Uncle Wen's nephew, and he didn't mean any harm. He just wanted to greet me. He doesn't look like those hooligans outside. There's such a big art association there, and my boyfriend is there too. He couldn't have meant it that way." "Who said that?" O Ming's face was cold. "I think he thought I couldn't see, so he wanted to develop a relationship with you." As he said that, he pointed at Yu Lily's head and gritted his teeth. "You! Why don't you use your brain to think about what's going on? That man obviously had ill intentions toward you. Aya, you're thinking too much. I know my own looks. It's impossible that any random man would be interested in me." O Ming almost couldn't help but curse, but he held it in and said, "In any case, if you see that man in the future, you have to stay away from him. Don't smile at him, and don't get close to him. Do you hear me?" "Yes, yes, yes." Yu Lily didn't know what to do with him. "What are we going to do now? What time is it?" 3:00. "Let's go boating," O Ming said with a smile. "Rowing?" Yu Lily looked at his hand. "Are you sure?" "Well, you row, I'll sit." "Not going." "Let's go." "Not going." "Let's go." Yu Lily bought some snacks and went to buy a ticket. She led O Ming onto the boat and started rowing with the oars. O Ming, on the other hand, was stepping on the boat. The two of them sat face to face. O Ming was not happy. He waved at her and said, "Come here." "No, we can't. The boat will tip over." "I won't." "Yes. I said I won't, so I won't." Yu Lily rolled her eyes at him. "If I go over, we'll capsize and die together. Shall I sit over there?" As he spoke, he was about to move. Yu Lily jumped in fright and shouted, "Sit down. Don't move." O Ming stopped what he was doing. He pursed his lips and waved at her. "Come here. You don't have to sit here." Chapter 1240. Yu Lily blinked her eyes and subconsciously looked around. There were several small boats nearby. Some of them were shared by their best friends, while others were couples like them. There were also families of 3 that came together. Perhaps they saw it, and many people looked over. Yu Lily's face became hotter and hotter. She wanted to push him away, but O Ming held her face and sucked harder. "Let go." Yu Lily slapped him in embarrassment. O Ming let go of her hand and continued to paddle the boat as if nothing had happened. Yu Lily felt the stares from all directions, and her face became redder. She lowered her head and didn't dare to raise it. O Ming was very calm and said, "Look, the 2 ducks behind you are so cute. Yu Lily turned her head and saw two little guys swimming together. They had green necks and white feathers. What ducks? Those are mandarin ducks. Oh. So those are mandarin ducks. Oh, Ming smiled. That's amazing. For some reason, Yu Lily felt that his words had a deeper meaning. After glaring at him, she turned her face away and rowed the boat, determined not to look at him. When she turned her head, she inadvertently saw a couple sitting together. The woman was sitting on the man's lap, hugging each other. They were very close, and they were smiling sweetly and brightly. But then, the two of them were hugging and kissing, and the man's hand was still on the woman's chest. Yu Lily blushed. The moral degeneration of the world was getting worse day by day. These two people were too bold. But she had to admit that such a handsome man and beautiful woman were very pleasing to the eye. Unknowingly, Yu Lily found Oh Ming leaning over and asked, "What are you looking at?" Yu Lily turned her head and was kissed on the cheek by Oh Ming. Yu Lily shrank her neck and shook her head, but she couldn't help looking in that direction. The two of them were no longer kissing, but the hand was still on her chest. "TSK, you're not being honest." Oh Ming leaned over and kissed her lips. "Let's go ashore." "So soon?" Yu Lily looked at the time. "We've been here for less than half an hour." "Well, I don't think rowing is fun. Let's go for a walk." "A walk?" Yu Lily felt a little relieved. This guy hated walking the most. In his words, such a boring activity was a waste of life. Instead of walking, it was better to work. Now, because he was injured, because he was blind, he could justifiably rest and stop working. Yu Lily smiled and nodded. "Let's go." When they reached the shore, Yu Lily held Oh Ming's hand and walked around the park. It was a unique building with a Manon style. It was antique, and the surrounding greenery was done very well. Most importantly, there were many couples walking around. Not long after the new year, many young couples hadn't started school yet. Of course, the park had become the first choice for dating. Along the way, there were all kinds of couples. Some were in love, some were laughing, and some were fooling around. It was very lively. Yu Lily was a little envious and looked at those couples. Oh Ming held her in his arms with one hand. He lowered his head and whispered, "What's with that expression?" He looked so envious. Chapter 1241. Yu Lily turned her head and looked at him. Especially when she saw his slightly evil features, she couldn't help but raise the corner of her mouth. She said with some disgust, "What's so good about you? They are better looking." "Really?" Oh Ming narrowed his eyes. In his deep peach blossom eyes, evil began to overflow unscrupulously. "Maybe others say the same. Come on, let's do it for others to see." As he said that, his hand touched Yu Lily's head, as if he was going to kiss her. Yu Lily's lips curled into a smile. She took a step back and said, "Go away. Are you trying to be a hooligan in broad daylight?" Oh Ming didn't realize that he was being despised. He raised his eyebrows and took a step forward. "That's not the way to be a hooligan. Come on, let me teach you." "Go away." Yu Lily smiled and stepped back, but Oh Ming was obviously a little faster. He took a step forward, grabbed her with one hand, and bent over to hold her in his arms. Yu Lily turned her head and saw Oh Ming looking at her gently. A pair of peach blossom eyes were like a gurgling spring, sparkling, and soft like a sea of flowers. When Yu Lily saw such a pair of eyes, she suddenly felt very lucky. Fortunately, he can see. Such a pair of beautiful eyes, such a pair of eyes that make people's hearts beat. If it was really like a few days ago, it would be such a pity. When he looked at her with such a pair of eyes, Yu Lily could not help but feel the love coming from him all the time. In fact, sometimes, he was just a little bit of a mouth. Yu Lily turned her head and leaned forward, standing on her tiptoes to get close to his lips. Oh Ming thought she was going to kiss him, so he leaned forward. Unexpectedly, Yu Lily had moved closer, but the moment she opened her mouth, She bit down hard on his lip. Oh Ming frowned. Just as he was about to recover, Yu Lily bit him again. Why did you bite me? Oh Ming felt inexplicable. He raised his eyebrows slightly and lowered his head with a low laugh. Is it because of Enchanting's flirting method? No. Yu Lily shook her head and looked at him with a smile. It's just because you have a dirty mouth. Oh Ming was speechless. Before he could say anything, Yu Lily held his face in her hands and kissed him on the lips. The gloominess of being mocked and scolded disappeared without a trace. Yu Lily kissed him again and licked his lips gently with her tongue. He raised his hand to touch her head. He moved his lips forward and acted as if he wanted more. However, more and more people were looking at them. Yu Lily immediately pushed him away and whispered, "You're acting like a hooligan." When Oh Ming heard that, he was slightly stunned. But soon, he laughed softly. Flirting and not being satisfied, wasn't this the same as acting like a rogue? Seeing Yu Lily running away with a smile, Oh Ming immediately chased after her. Stop right there. Yu Lily ran even faster. She turned around and waved at Oh Ming. Come on, let's go eat. Oh Ming was a little puzzled, but when he saw her bright and beautiful smile, his mood naturally soared. His eyes turned into crescents as he chased after Yu Lily. Wait for me. Aya, why are you so slow when you're so tall? Oh Ming was puzzled. Yu Lily couldn't do anything else, but she could run faster than anyone else. Your legs are so long. Why are you so slow? Chapter 1242. Oh Ming's voice wasn't soft. There were many people walking around them. When they heard Oh Ming's words, those who knew what was going on looked at them suspiciously. Yu Lily's face heated up. She quickly covered it and found a corner to hide. I'm going to die. How shameless of him to say something like that in front of so many people. Fortunately, the gazes around them only lingered for a moment before quickly turning away. Oh Ming walked up to her and held her hand proudly as he asked, "Didn't you say we were going out for dinner? What are we going to eat? What can you eat? Your hand is already like this. You should eat something high in protein. Seafood? Okay." She looked at the time. It was only evening. Near the park, there was no lack of restaurants. It was also close to the seafood market, so there were many places to eat seafood. The two of them walked slowly, shoulder to shoulder. After walking for about 10 minutes, they arrived at a seafood restaurant. They booked a private room. Just as they were about to order, Yu Lily received a call from Wen Fenglin. Uncle Wen. Yu Lily held out her cell phone for him to see. She answered the call and called out, "Uncle Wen." "Hey, Lily, where did you and Oh Ming go?" We're preparing to eat. Have you eaten? Oh, I see. I was going to call you out to eat together. Where are you now? Yu Lily quickly gave him the name of the restaurant. Unexpectedly, Wen Fenglin seemed surprised and said, "What a coincidence. We're here too. Why don't you come over and join us? Which room are you in?" When Yu Lily heard that, she knew something was amiss. She turned her head to look at Oh Ming and said, "Uncle Wen is here too. He asked us to join him for dinner." Oh Ming furrowed his brows and shook his head gently at him. If Wen Fenglin had been alone, he wouldn't have had any objections. But it was obvious that Uncle Wen wasn't alone. With such a large group of people together, it was inevitable that they would have to drink and socialize. He wasn't there to do such a thing. When Yu Lily saw that, she knew what was going on. She said into the phone, "Forget it, Uncle Wen. Oh Ming hasn't fully recovered yet. We shouldn't go and spoil your fun. It doesn't matter. There are only 3 of us, and there are only 5 of you. We'll go back after eating. We won't drink or socialize. Don't be afraid." Wen Fenglin's voice was filled with ridicule as he asked, "Which room are you in? Shall I bring you over? It just so happens that you're also a painter, so it's not a bad thing for us to meet." In all fairness, Uncle Wen treated him very well. Since he had already put it that way, Yu Lily would feel bad if she tried to turn him down again. In the end, he relented and reported the room number. He reached out and pinched Yu Lily's face and said, "I'm tired of pretending. Do you know that?" Yu Lily was a little embarrassed and smiled apologetically. "I forgot." Oh Ming had an urge to strangle her. Soon, when Feng Lin arrived at the scene. When he saw the two young people, his mood lifted significantly. He said, "What a coincidence. Let's go. They're all waiting for you." There weren't many people, but it wasn't easy to accept. When Oh Ming saw Zhenli, his face darkened. Chapter 1243. The moment she entered, Yu Lily saw Zhenli. Beside Zhenli sat a middle-aged man who looked to be about the same age as Wen Fenglin. Yu Lily wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but the moment she entered, she felt the middle-aged man's gaze land on her. His gaze seemed to be probing, doubtful, and nostalgic. The complicated emotions made Yu Lily look over as well. She was a little confused. Before Yu Lily could confirm anything, the middle-aged man's gaze quickly shifted away. "Come, let me introduce you." Wen Fenglin let Oh Ming and Yu Lily take their seats before he started speaking with a smile. "This is Xiao Jiao's son. Zhenli has probably met him before. His name is Oh Ming. This is Oh Ming's girlfriend, Yu Lily." Zhenli smiled and extended his hand toward Yu Lily. "Hello, Miss Yu. I'm Zhenli." Just as Yu Lily was about to extend her hand to shake Zhenli's, she could clearly feel a cold aura emanating from beside her. But her hand was already extended halfway. If she retracted it, wouldn't that be too deliberate? How could Uncle Wen keep his face after this? Yu Lily had no choice but to bite the bullet and extend her hand. After shaking Zhenli's hand gently, she immediately retracted it. She reached out and gently squeezed Oh Ming's hand. The smile on her face faded. As for Oh Ming, he had already switched to playing blind. Since he couldn't see anything, there was no need for him to care. How could Wen Fenglin not see through Oh Ming's intentions? He didn't care and introduced the other person besides Zhenli to Yu Lily. "This is the chairman of the province's art association, Zhen Xianlang. He used to be a good friend of mine. We haven't seen each other for many years. We only met this year," Wen Fenglin introduced. Zhen Xianlang and Zhenli looked alike. One look and anyone could tell that they were father and son. However, Zhen Xianlang's facial features were more amiable than Wen Fenglin's. He looked more capable. His eyes were big, bright and full of expression, and he looked sharp and capable. "Hello." Zhen Xianlang extended his hand toward Yu Lily and said, "Miss Yu is really beautiful. Xiao O is really lucky to have found such a beautiful girlfriend." It was obviously a polite greeting to change the topic to Oh Ming. Everyone present knew that Oh Ming's expression softened when he heard that. So be it. It was better than pestering his woman and refusing to let go. Oh Ming curled his lips and nodded. "My luck is not bad. She doesn't despise me even though I'm like this. This must be true love." It was obvious teasing, but in reality, it was a show of force. Zhenli was a smart person. He replied with a smile, "Isn't that so? This is true love." Zhen Xianlang couldn't help but laugh. He quickly changed the topic and exchanged a few words with Oh Ming. Oh Lily and Oh Xianlang and Shen. From time to time, Zhen Xianlang and Zhenli would talk to Oh Ming. Yu Lily sat to the side and occasionally helped Oh Ming peel the shells of prawns and pick up fish fillets. She didn't interrupt their conversation. Ming, they were talking, but they, Li, and said, the topic. As, and when Zhen and was. Wen and Yu Li, and. As Zhen Lilzhen and Ming Zhen Ming said Li. Chapter 1244. What she wanted to say was suddenly interrupted. Yu Lily stretched out her elbow and nudged Oh Ming. When Zhenli and Zhen Xianlang heard that, they looked at each other. Zhen Xianlang looked at Wen Fenglin and said with a smile, I see. To be honest, I find Miss Yu a little familiar. What do you think, Lao Wen? Wen Fenglin was in the middle of eating when he heard that. His heart skipped a beat. He thinks so too. How could that be? This is the first time they've met. He maintained his composure on the surface and turned to look at Yu Lily. He pretended to scrutinize her for a moment and nodded his head. She does look a little familiar. Does she look like Xian? Xian, Yu Lily was no stranger to that name. Old Mrs. Shen had also mentioned that she looked like Xian. But it wasn't the physical resemblance. It was the charm. Yu Lily lowered her head awkwardly when she heard Zhen Xianlang's words. She smiled and asked, so, you know Xian, as well? Zhen Xianlang was surprised and asked, you know her? Yeah. I've heard Uncle Wen mention her before. I've also heard a grandmother mention her. She also said that I look a little like Xian. I guess so. But, who's the grandmother you're talking about? Xian-er's aunt. Old Shen's half-fairy, Wen Fenglin replied. When Zhen Xianlang heard that, he knew who it was. He smiled and lowered his head in shame. Xian-er is my wife. Wife? Yu Lily was stunned. She looked at Wen Fenglin. Isn't Xian-er Wen Fenglin's lover? According to old Mrs. Shen, Xian-er's health isn't very good. Shouldn't she be unable to get married? How could she have such an old child? Zhenli looks to be at least 21 or 22 years old. Wen Fenglin looked over at the same time and smiled. His two deep dimples were embedded in his cheeks. They were deep and beautiful. He looked at her with a deep gaze. It was as if he was looking at her, but it was also as if he was looking at someone else. Xian has passed away. Yu Lily knew that and nodded her head. But, she didn't know what to say. After thinking for a while, he asked, I heard from Grandmother Shen that Aunt Xian, doesn't seem to be in good health. Yes. Her health wasn't very good, Zhen Xianlang replied. He looked at Yu Lily with a hint of loneliness and said, when she passed away, I was studying in the north. I didn't even get to see her one last time. When Wen Fenglin heard that, he seemed to have thought of something and laughed mirthlessly. You were in the north at that time. Why didn't you bring her over? When Zhen Xianlang heard that, he looked Wen Fenglin in the eye and sighed. You're still blaming me, Wen Fenglin choked on his words. He looked away and coldly said, I have no right to blame you. I can only blame myself. There was a story, the relationship between these two elders was not shallow. Yu Lily's mind instantly conjured up a drama. Wen Fenglin was a poor boy who fell in love with Xian-er, the daughter of a wealthy family. Because he was too poor, the girl's family objected. Later, Xian-er was forced to marry Zhenli's father, who was rich and powerful. Wasn't it said that Xian-er's health wasn't good enough to bear a child? In other words, Zhenli's father ignored Xian-er's health and forced her to bear a child for him. That was why Xian died? Chapter 1245. Therefore, when Uncle Wen introduced Zhenli's father to her just now, he said, my good friend, instead of my good friend. This was the difference, right? Yu Lily seemed to have figured out the cause and effect of all this, and she also understood their current feelings. Because of a woman, good friends would not turn against each other, but they would gradually drift apart. There was a dead man between the two brothers. However, Zhenli's father still had a child left behind by that woman. As for Uncle Wen, he had nothing. For so many years, he had been alone. Even as a bystander, Yu Lily felt some sympathy for him. She was so engrossed in her thoughts that she didn't even hear when Uncle Wen called out to her. Oh Ming pulled her gently and asked, are you full? Yu Lily calmed down and nodded. Yes, I'm full. Let's go. All right. Yu Lily stood up and realized that the atmosphere was strangely awkward. What happened? Yu Lily was very curious, but she had to be distracted at this time. Seeing that Uncle Wen and O Ming had both stood up, she lowered her head, took O Ming's hand, and walked forward. However, he could not help but turn to look at Jin Xianlang curiously. This elder seemed to be looking at her differently. Could it be that he really treated her like Xian? Feeling a little awkward, Yu Lily quickly followed O Ming out. When they were outside, Wen Fenglin looked at Yu Lily and said with a smile, "That guy is just like that. You do look a little like Xian. If I didn't know that Xian had never given birth to a child, would have thought that you were her daughter." Xian didn't give birth? Not having children and not being able to have children were two different concepts. Yu Lily looked at Wen Fenglin strangely and asked, "How could that be? Wasn't that Zhenli just now Xian's child?" Wen Fenglin shook his head. "No. The child is only in his early 20s. As for Xian, she passed away 24 or 25 years ago." 24 or 25 years ago? Isn't that about the same age as Yu Lily? Yu Lily's heart suddenly beat faster, and she subconsciously looked at O Ming. O Ming's expression seemed to change a little, but it didn't change much at the moment. Yu Lily thought for a moment and asked, "Uncle Wen, do you have a photo of Auntie Xian?" Everyone was saying that they looked alike, but Yu Lily had never even seen a photo of them. When Wen Fenglin heard that, he immediately understood. "Why? Are you finally curious?" Yu Lily nodded her head. "Yeah. I heard from Granny Shin that we don't really look alike. At least, you can't tell at first glance, but, yes, the more we get to know each other, the more similar I feel." As he spoke, Wen Fenglin took out his leather armor and carefully took out a photo that had already been molded. The photo was in black and white. The pixels back then didn't seem to be very high. Even the facial features on his face were blurry. However, the photo was well preserved. The woman in the photo was gentle and beautiful with a peaceful smile. But at first glance, Yu Lily felt a sense of familiarity with him. Like. Chapter 1246. Surrogacy. 24 to 25 years ago, how did Auntie Xian die? Yu Lily asked as she handed the photo back to him. As soon as she asked the question, she immediately realized that it wasn't a good question. Indeed, Wen Fenglin smiled. There was a hint of sadness in his smile. Xian's body was on the cold side, and she was naturally afraid of the cold. Fortunately, our family conditions weren't too bad, and we managed to raise her until she was 20. But, in order to be with me, she secretly went to the small house I was renting to look for me in the middle of a snowy day. Wen Fenglin paused for a moment. He sounded remorseful. Perhaps she was frozen. We stayed in the small house for 2 days. On the third day, Xian's body started to feel unwell. 2 words immediately appeared in Yu Lily's mind: elopement. In those days, elopement was a very serious matter. I was a poor student at the time. I was full of ideals and aspirations, but my finances were tight. I searched everywhere for medicine, but Xian's health didn't improve. So, I sent her back. When Yu Lily heard the first part of the story, she had already guessed what had happened. But, when she heard the second part, her heart couldn't help but turn cold. How big of a decision did a rich young lady like her have to make before she decided to leave with you? But, this man who had decided to follow her for the rest of his life had sent her back within a few days. What did that girl think? Just thinking about it made Yu Lily feel sorry for the girl. When Wen Fenglin saw the expression on Yu Lily's face, he could roughly guess what she was thinking. With a bitter laugh, he asked, "Do you also think that what I did wasn't right?" Yu Lily saw the bitter expression on Wen Fenglin's face. She hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. I also wanted to keep her by my side, but my circumstances weren't good enough. Xian was a very good girl. She shouldn't have suffered with me. She shouldn't have followed me. Even the most basic of health wasn't guaranteed. Wen Fenglin's small eyes were filled with sadness. If she followed me, she wouldn't have had any protection. We weren't from the same world at all. When she heard that, Yu Lily found it familiar. We weren't from the same world. The anger in her heart flared up. The way he looked at Wen Fenglin had changed. So, if you send her back, will she be able to live well? He thought he was doing it for the good of women, but was it really true? They claimed that it was for her own good, but in reality, it was just because of their selfishness that they did not want to bear that responsibility. Yu Lily gritted her teeth. She liked you so much that she ignored her family's objections to be with a single man like you. Her reputation was ruined, but you sent her back. Wen Fenglin was silent for a long time before he said, I'm also her murderer. You're the murderer who killed her. Yu Lily's words were merciless. You men are so full of yourself. What you think is good for her, is it really good for her? How naive. Yu Lily was exasperated. What happened after that? She married that Jin guy? Yes. Yu Lily's conjecture was completely overturned. She had thought that Uncle Wen had no choice but to do this because of Xian Er's parents' objection. She had never imagined that it was all Uncle Wen's own doing. Chapter 1247. You're really muddle-headed. Yu Lily gritted her teeth and growled. Her heart was filled with disappointment. This was the first time in Wen Fenglin's life that he had been lectured by such a young girl. He didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, he felt even more guilty and remorseful. Xian Er's family started a timber business after the founding of the People's Republic. They were very influential in Ji province at the time, and they doted on their only daughter to the core. At that time, the Jin family was a good match for them, and they had already set up an engagement. In other words, he was the so-called third party. Sigh. Yu Lily was infuriated just listening to it, but she didn't know what else to say. Wealthy families were particular about a good match. Just look at Oh Ming's mother. That kind of prejudice had existed since ancient times. How could it be easy to change that? But, looking at Wen Fenglin's current situation, she couldn't help but feel sorry for her gentle uncle. Oh Ming gently patted Yu Lily's shoulder with his large, gentle hand. His eyes were unfocused, but his voice was steady as he asked, Uncle Wen, where are you staying? Let's go back to Kingstown tomorrow. We've been here for a few days already. Wen Fenglin knew that Oh Ming was trying to give him a way out of this embarrassing situation. He smiled and nodded his head. All right. Let's go. We'll go back together tomorrow. Which hotel are you staying at? Yu Lily told him the name of the hotel. It was a little far from where Wen Fenglin was staying, but it was on the way. They hailed a cab and returned to the hotel together. On the way, no one spoke first. Yu Lily's mind was filled with countless possibilities. If Wen Fenglin had been more insistent and not sent Xian Er back, but had treated her himself, would the outcome have been different? What if Xian Er's body wasn't as weak as they had imagined? If Xian hadn't married Jin Xianlang, would she have gone back to Wen Fenglin after she was cured? The more Yu Lily thought about it, the worse she felt. Xian Er was dead, and Wen Fenglin had been alone for more than 20 years. The man that Xian had chosen in the end had chosen another man, and they had even given birth to a child. Jin Xianlang's actions made Wen Fenglin feel particularly desolate. How hateful. However, Yu Lily also knew that her complaints were unreasonable. How could a man remain single for the rest of his life for a woman who had someone else in her heart? The Jin family was a large family, and he had his responsibilities. Wen Fenglin arrived first. After getting out of the car, Oh Ming leaned over and asked in a low voice, "What are you thinking about?" Yu Lily shook her head, a little annoyed. When she returned to the hotel, she realized that her phone had been switched off. No wonder it was so quiet. He charged his phone and turned it on. There were more than a dozen missed calls. Shinjilia. Oh Ming watched from afar. He looked at Yu Lily with a faint smile and asked, "Aren't you going to call him back?" Looking at his expression, Yu Lily knew that he was up to no good. You. She knew Shen. Oui, master. Can. F. Chapter 1248. Lily had just been dragged into the bathroom when she heard her cell phone ringing outside. It was undoubtedly Shinjilia who was calling at this time. This made Lily naturally think of what had happened in the hotel room last night. Her face unconsciously turned red. She looked up and met Oh Ming's eyes. Oh Ming's eyes were filled with playfulness and ambiguity. He pulled her over and whispered, "Why is your face so red? What are you thinking of?" Lily glared at him and didn't answer. She pulled her hand back and said, "I'm going to answer the phone." Answer the phone? Oh Ming raised his eyebrows. There was some pride in his eyes. He immediately smiled and said, "You don't want to take a bath? You go fill the tub. I'll help you bathe later. Together. Why do you have to leave me behind?" Oh Ming pulled her, but he didn't go into the bathroom. Instead, he pulled her to the bedside. Oh Ming picked up the phone that was ringing nonstop and smiled. "I thought it was Shinjilia." "No?" Lily leaned over. "Then who is it?" "Yi Qianqian." He threw the phone to Lily. Lily looked at it and saw that it was indeed Yi Qianqian. She picked up the phone and heard Yi Qianqian's heavy sigh. "Hello, Qianqian. Lily, my life is so hard." Yi Qianqian's voice was bitter, and she immediately started to complain. From Yi Yu's injury, she kept complaining about Shen Luo and the Shen family. Finally, she asked Lily to help her ask for leave so that she could take care of her sister. Only then did Lily hang up. In the bathroom, Oh Ming had finished filling the tub. As he unbuttoned his shirt, he walked over to Lily. Lily had just hung up the phone when she felt a slight weight on her body. Oh Ming reached across her chest and held her waist. He gently kissed her ear and said, "It's time to take a bath." Lily's ear was tickled. She slightly moved away and said, "You have to let me go." Oh Ming didn't want to let go. Looking at her petite body, he felt a little regret. If his hand hadn't been injured, it would have been best to carry her into the bathroom and help her take off her clothes and put her in the water. However, he only had one hand now, so he couldn't carry it at all. He could only loosen his grip, his gaze lingering on her body. "You've grown longer." When Lily heard that, she subconsciously touched the hair beside her ear. Just as Lily was about to speak, her phone rang again. This time, it was Shinjilia. Oh Ming clearly saw the name on it and raised his eyebrows slightly. When Lily saw the phone, she was in no hurry to move. She sat on the bed and answered the call. Oh Ming's eyes darkened. He had originally planned to go to the bathroom, but he immediately gave up. He leaned his knee against the side of Lily's body and lowered his body. With one hand, he pushed Lily onto the bed. At the same time, the phone had been connected, and the person on the other side of the line could hear it clearly. Lily immediately covered her mouth and glared at him. Oh Ming acted as if he hadn't seen it and muttered to himself, "Is it Shinjilia? Take it. We'll continue later." Lily stretched out her leg and kicked him, feeling even more embarrassed and annoyed. Chapter 1249. Shinjilia was silent for a moment before he asked, "Lily, are you with Oh Ming?" When Lily was about to speak, Oh Ming suddenly pressed down on her. His big hand reached into her coat and lifted her clothes. "This guy is doing it on purpose." Lily held her clothes tightly and stared at him as she answered Shinjilia, "Yes, I just returned to the hotel." Shinjilia felt a sense of crisis and quickly asked, "Have you returned to the hotel? In Oh Ming's room or yours? I'll go find you." Lily's hands were pressing down too hard. He couldn't lift her clothes at all, so he decided not to deal with her clothes. He reached out to her thighs and gently caressed them. Lily slapped his hand hard and lifted her foot to kick it. She replied patiently, "We found a hotel near where Uncle Wen is." We'll go there tomorrow to pick up our luggage. You're staying together? Shinjilia heard the subtle sound and felt even more uneasy. He said, Lily, since you've broken up, you should make a clean break. Return Ming to Uncle Wen, and then come back here. Grandma misses you very much. There's another very important thing that Grandma wants to tell you in person. What is it? Old Mrs. Shin actually has something important to tell me? Lily listened, but she was just listening. Every time old Mrs. Shin talked about something important, it would be a trivial matter. After making a fuss about it, there would be no further details. This time should be similar, so Lily didn't take it to heart. It's very important. When you come back, I'll let Grandma tell you. Shinjilia's voice was serious. It didn't sound like a joke or a lie. Lily listened, but Ming had already changed his strategy. He directly touched her neck with one hand and gently pressed down. His lips fell on her face. She didn't know whether it was intentional or not, but the place where he kissed made a slight sound. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to pass through the phone. Let's talk about it tomorrow. It's so late now. It's not good. Ming's voice sounded very close to the phone. Just as she was about to say something, Ming turned her face around with one hand and kissed her on the lips. Shocked, Lily opened her mouth to speak, but Ming's tongue easily slipped in and gently teased her. Their tongues intertwined, emitting a soft sizzling sound. Lily tried to push him away but failed. Holding the phone in her hand, her heart was beating fast. Ming's hand moved down and pinched her soft and plump breasts. He squinted at the phone, which was still in the middle of a call. He deliberately lowered his voice and said, Is the call over? Go away. Lily pushed his face away, but he had no intention of leaving. He got a little closer and said, Are you done? I'm still waiting for you to help me bathe. Could this guy be any more deliberate? Lily didn't know what to do with him. In a low voice, she said, Go away first. I'm on the phone. I'll help you wash it later. Chapter 1250. All right. Get out. Lily gritted her teeth and took his hand away. However, such an action seemed to have fueled his interest even more. Instead, the giant hand moved even faster. Shinjilia listened to the movement and was silent for a moment. What are you doing? He asked. He's drinking water by the side. I'm on the phone. I see. Shinjilia felt a little relieved. I'll pick you up. Which hotel are you staying at? No, I'll sleep here. Ming's eyes can't move, so I'll take care of him here. Don't worry, I got a double bedroom. Ming squinted at the 1.8-meter-long bed and looked at Lily with a faint smile. Lily looked straight ahead and said, I'll go over there tomorrow. You should rest early. I have to help Ming take a bath. It's not convenient for you, you're a girl, I've been with Ming for many years. It's okay to help him take a bath. Lily pretended not to understand Shinjilia's concerns. I'm hanging up. Wait. Shinjilia shouted. Lily paused. When she was about to put the phone back to her ear, Ming pulled her over. After hanging up, he threw the phone aside. He hasn't finished yet. Lily kicked him. Her tone was inadvertently coquettish. However, when he heard the voice, Ming's eyes darkened, and he pulled down the pants that he had just peeled off halfway. Lily pulled her pants up and kicked him again. She said angrily, Go away. Take a bath. Ming pulled her up and said, I'll help you take off your clothes. No. One by one. I'll help you wash first, and then I'll wash myself. Lily pulled her pants up and put them on. When she stood up, she heard the phone ring again. It was Shinjilia again. Lily answered the phone. Hello. Be careful. Although Ming can't see, he's still a man. Don't let him bully you. Hearing this, Lily felt even more guilty. When she was about to say something, she looked up and saw the strange look in Ming's eyes. Okay. Go to bed early. Good night. Lily said goodbye. After a few seconds, she hung up. What did he say? Ming leaned over and asked in a low voice. You told me to be careful of you, you big pervert. She pushed him away again and stomped toward the bathroom. Ming raised his eyebrows and hugged her from behind. He smiled and said, Is that so? Is he so worried about me? I'm worried about you too. Ming nodded in agreement and said, You're right to worry about me. Come, let's go in. Go. Help me take off my clothes. Ming pulled her hand and put it on his clothes. I can't take my hands off. Lily looked at him suspiciously. When she saw his indifferent and serious look, she reached out and took off his clothes one by one. His shirt was taken off. Lily tugged at him and said, Come in. But Ming was still not satisfied. He said, Pants. Lily then turned around and reluctantly helped him take off his clothes. But as soon as she got closer, she clearly noticed that he was not calm. Lily blushed. She looked up and saw that Ming was still pretending to be human. Chapter 1251. Let's go down together. Ming pulled her along and stepped into the bathtub. Lily shook his hand off and said, I'll take off my coat. When Ming heard that, he loosened his grip. Unexpectedly, after Lily loosened her grip, she turned around and walked out, closing the bathroom door on her way out. Ming was stunned and sat down in the bathtub. He patted the water and waited for Lily to come back. But he didn't know what Lily was doing outside. A few minutes passed, and she didn't show any intention of coming back. Lily, what are you doing? Ming shouted. Lily heard Ming's shout from outside, but she had no desire to respond. She held her phone and sent a message to Yi Qianqian. Ming waited for a few more minutes and couldn't wait any longer. He didn't need to think to know that Lily was probably unhappy. Did I do something to make her unhappy? Was it about the phone call just now? Or was it about me asking her to help me undress? Or was it because I wanted to bathe with her? Ming couldn't be sure. But the water was getting colder and colder. Ming had no choice but to use one hand. The other hand couldn't touch the water. Ming raised one hand, and his hand was sore. He dilly-dallied for a few more minutes before shouting, Lily, I was wrong. Lily heard those words from outside, and her typing hand paused. The anger and displeasure that had just risen in her heart slowly dissipated. After informing Yi Qianqian, Lily put her phone aside to charge it and walked in the direction of the bathroom. When she opened the bathroom door, she saw Ming sitting in the bathtub. His head, neck, and body were covered in bubbles. At that moment, as if he heard Lily coming in, he opened one of his squinted eyes, and his whole face was wrinkled. He supported himself with one hand and touched his hair with the other. When he saw her come over, he closed his eyes again. It hurts my eyes. Help me quickly. Ming's voice was full of grievance. It sounded like he was acting like a spoiled child. When Lily heard the noise, she walked over with a straight face. She took the shower head next to her, turned on the water, and poured it on Ming's head. Stand up. Lily grabbed his hand and helped him to walk out. The bathtub was a little slippery, so Ming stepped out and deliberately pressed his whole body against hers. Lily pushed him away. Walk properly, or you can wash yourself. Ming immediately straightened up and walked out, leaving Lily to do whatever she wanted. Take it, I'll help you dry your hair. Lily stuffed the shower head into his palm and warned, Don't get me wet. I don't have any clothes to change into. Unless you don't want to go back to Kingstown tomorrow. With one sentence, Ming chased away all the dishonesty in his heart. He obediently allowed Lily to help him bathe. Even he didn't expect himself to be so obedient. When he was dragged to the bed with a towel wrapped around him, Oh Ming looked up at Yu Lily's face. It was a little better than before, but it still looked a little unhappy. What's wrong? Are you in a bad mood? Oh Ming pulled her with his big hand and asked in a low voice. Yu Lily pursed her lips and said, Oh Ming, can you respect me? Chapter 1252. Yu Lily was about to help him put on his clothes, but she stopped. She threw the clothes down and turned to leave. I'm going to take a shower first. Oh Ming could tell that this woman was really angry. He quickly went forward to pull her back and said, Wait a minute, Yu Lily. Yu Lily stopped in her tracks and turned to look at him. What's wrong? Why are you so strange? Why are you angry? You should at least tell me. Oh Ming looked at her and didn't know what to say. You're so strange, and I'm innocent, I'm not angry. Although she said that, her face tightened. Let go of me. I'm going to take a shower. Are you angry that I dragged you to take a shower together? Oh Ming frowned and guessed. However, he quickly rejected this idea in his heart. It wasn't that they hadn't taken a shower together before. On the contrary, it was as common as having a meal. What was there to be angry about? After thinking about it, Oh Ming still felt that it might be because of what happened when she was on the phone. No, let go. Yu Lily pried his hand away, and her expression became even more unpleasant. Seeing Yu Lily like this, Oh Ming suddenly thought of the strategy to win back an ex-girlfriend that he had read a few days ago. If your girlfriend suddenly got angry, and you didn't know the reason, then no matter what, it was most important to first admit your mistake. Oh Ming pursed his lips and lowered his head. I was wrong. Yu Lily couldn't help but look at him. Did you take the wrong medicine today? He admitted his mistake so often, and twice in a row. Oh Ming was a little embarrassed when he heard that. His cheeks turned red, and he coughed softly. I don't know why you're angry, but if I made you angry, tell me, okay? That again. Yu Lily sighed and said, Oh Ming, I'll tell you later. I'm going to take a shower first. Let go of me. Are you really angry? As he spoke, he let go of her hand. Yu Lily didn't answer. She took a bathrobe and went into the bathroom. After the shower, Yu Lily washed their undergarments and used a hairdryer to blow-dry them. By the time she was done, more than an hour had passed. Oh Ming could see that Yu Lily was doing it on purpose. Usually, Yu Lily wouldn't dawdle like this. But, thinking that Yu Lily was still angry, Oh Ming didn't dare to rush her. He kept thinking about what Yu Lily had just said. Oh Ming, can you respect me a little? Did he disrespect her? He seemed to respect her quite a bit. Yu Lily's short hair had just been blow-dried, and it was a little fluffy on her head. She walked over and saw Oh Ming staring at her. Ignoring him, she turned off the light and climbed into bed. She wrapped herself in the quilt and lay down. Oh Ming lay down obediently, turned around, and looked at her. Yu Lily's back was facing him, so he couldn't tell what she was feeling. He reached out a hand and gave her a gentle push. Didn't you say you would tell me after bathing? Now, tell me. Oh Ming, do you want to be with me? Oh Ming was baffled. He put a hand on her waist and said, Of course I want to. Otherwise, do you think I came all the way here to play the trick of injuring myself just for fun? Chapter 1253. Hearing that, Oh Ming felt a little uneasy. He leaned over and pulled her, saying in a deep voice, Turn around. What do you mean by that? Do you not want to marry me? But Yu Lily didn't turn around. She kept her back to him and said, Marriage is not just about you. Hearing that, Oh Ming roughly guessed what Yu Lily wanted to say. Oh Ming sat up and said in a serious voice, I will take care of my mother. You just have to be ready to be with me. It's not just that, Oh Ming. Yu Lily was wrapped in the quilt with her back to Oh Ming. Her eyes were staring at the darkness in front of her. She knew that Oh Ming was already alert. If she didn't handle it well, he would be angry. She knew that Ming's patience was extremely short. But there were some things that she had wanted to say for a long time. Especially after hearing Uncle Wen's story today, the desire in her heart became stronger. What else is there? Ming stared at her and said, "Turn around and let's talk face to face." Lily held the quilt tighter and said, "You never understood what I wanted and what I wanted to do. Just like when we broke up before, you only knew that you couldn't see, so you said those things to drive me away and force me to break up with you. But did you think about my feelings?" Ming's eyes darkened. He looked at Lily's back and asked, "Just because of that?" The tragedy of Uncle Wen and Xian was caused by this kind of self-righteousness. You thought that you were doing it for each other's good, but in fact, you were selfish. Why couldn't you respect each other and give each other a chance to choose? Ming was silent and crawled in front of her. Lily shrank to the side. When she sensed that Ming was coming over, she subconsciously moved to the back to make room for him. It was a completely subconscious action without any thought. When Ming crawled over, Lily realized what she had done. Ming didn't notice her daze. He lay down in front of her and asked, "Just because of that?" Lily stared at him and nodded. "Silly girl, have you ever thought that if Uncle Wen doesn't send Xian back, Xian will die even faster? The Qi family is rich and powerful. They will definitely treat their daughter well. If she were to follow Uncle Wen, with Qi Xian's health, she might not even last half a year. I don't think Uncle Wen did anything wrong. If it were me, I would probably do the same." Lily gritted her teeth and pushed him away. She said angrily, "Everything I said just now was for nothing." Ming was amused by her reaction. He held her in his arms and said, "No, what you said makes sense. Don't hug me, speak properly." Ming had no intention of letting go. He said, "I didn't consider your feelings in the past. I won't do it again. It's all my fault. Lily, can you forgive me?" No sincerity. Lily punched him in the chest. "Do you know how disgusting the things you said before were? I really want to kill you." Ming chuckled and moved closer to her face. In a low voice, he said, "In the end, you still can't bear to. But, it's all thanks to you that my eyes have recovered." Lily looked up and reached out to touch his eyes. "Is it really because of me?" "Yeah, this is probably the power of love," Ming said. "Go, get lost." "No, my hand hurts." "Let me hug you for a while," Ming said. Chapter 1254. Ming wrapped his arms around Lily's waist and didn't forget to look up at her. Lily sensed his probing. She pressed her hand against his and said, "I'll let you die from the pain." "Don't be serious." "How can that be?" "I'm so serious. When I lie, my face turns red and my heart beats faster. If you don't believe me, feel it." As he spoke, he pulled Lily's hand over to his chest and said, "It's still the same as usual. That means I'm telling the truth." Lily was amused by his shameless words. She patted him and said, "You can blush and have a heartbeat? Who are you kidding?" Ming saw that she finally laughed, and his lips unconsciously curled up. He said, "Other than you, there's no one else I can tease." He reached out and hugged her tighter. In a low voice, he said, "I don't know what kind of person I am in your heart, but I'm serious about you. Lily, I want to marry you, and I want to be with you forever." His voice was low and deep, and his words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Lily looked up at him. In the darkness, his eyes seemed unusually bright. Even if she couldn't see anything in front of her, Lily could still feel that his eyes were burning and burning. "Do you know, I envy second brother so much." Second brother, Li Sicheng. He pretended to be dead for so many years, but when he came back, his family was still there, and his wife was still there. She even helped him give birth to a pair of twins. Second brother's daughter-in-law looked very useless, but who knew that she survived those 4 years alone with 2 children and such a big company? Lily looked down and nodded. Qianqian is indeed very powerful. She had always been. Su Qianxi looked soft and weak, but her heart was stronger than anyone else's. She envied her very much. She had always envied her. Their whole family is amazing. Oh Ming rubbed Yu Lily's head and whispered, the reason why second brother dares to do it is because he knows that he can go back at any time. Whether it is his family or his wife, they will always be waiting for him. Yu Lily reached out and put her arms around his waist. They have 3 brothers, and you are the only child in your family. Don't do that kind of thing. It's too dangerous. Yes, I want to do this kind of thing, but I have to get married first. Yes, a family. Yu Lily heard it and kept it in mind. But in his heart, he still felt a little empty. Yu Lily closed her eyes and hugged him. She patted his back gently and said, "Go to sleep." It was rare that Oh Ming didn't touch her. He hugged her and gently closed his eyes. A dreamless night. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Oh Ming's bare chest in front of her. Gently taking his hand away, Yu Lily tiptoed toward the bathroom. After washing up, Oh Ming was already awake. Good morning. Oh Ming seemed to be in a particularly good mood today. His smile was as bright as the sun. Yu Lily looked at him and nodded. She then walked over in her slippers and said, "I helped you squeeze out the toothpaste. The razor and aftershave are all ready. You can go by yourself." Oh Ming was especially well behaved today. He obediently went to brush his teeth and wash his face. After the 2 of them changed their clothes, they went to the hotel where Shinjilia was staying. After collecting her luggage, she met up with Shinjilia and old Mrs. Shen. Chapter 1255. When Shinjilia saw them, his lips curled up, but he couldn't bring himself to smile. Oh Ming's appearance were obviously cleaner than yesterday, and even his spirits seemed to be a lot better. There was no doubt that this was all thanks to Yu Lily. Sure enough, with a woman taking care of him, even his mood improved. Old Mrs. Shen didn't notice her grandson's strange look. She walked over with a smile and said, "Boy, you look more handsome than yesterday." Oh Ming looked ahead, his eyes unfocused, and his face blank. When he heard that, his eyes couldn't help but sparkle. He smiled and said, "Is that so? Thank you for the compliment. Do you have any plans for today?" "I'm going back to the capital with the youngest. I've been playing outside for too long." As she said that, she leaned over and asked mysteriously, "You and Lily are back together again?" Oh Ming's eyes curved. His joy was self-evident, but he didn't directly admit it. He said, "You should ask Lily." When old Mrs. Shen saw that, she pouted and looked at him with disgust. But when she remembered that he couldn't see it anymore, she immediately snorted and whispered, "Lily is too soft-hearted. If it were me, I wouldn't forgive you. But I have something to tell you. Go back and tell your mother." "Huh?" Old Mrs. Shen's voice was very soft, and it sounded mysterious. This was the first time Oh Ming had been so close to old Mrs. Shen, and it was also the first time he had spoken to her so calmly. "I'm going to take Lily as my granddaughter." Oh Ming was surprised to hear that, but he wasn't that shocked. Old Mrs. Shen's temperament was a little strange. She had taken Enchanting, who she knew wasn't her own granddaughter, as a granddaughter. Based on the old lady's love for Yu Lily, it wasn't surprising that she would take her as a granddaughter. "Did you tell Lily?" "No, I was afraid she wouldn't agree, so I came with you to persuade her." "Do it with me?" Oh Ming laughed. "I'm not the one you're interested in. I can't make decisions about her." They had almost fallen out last night. If it weren't for his wit, he might not have been able to coax her today. If Yu Lily knew that old Mrs. Shen had bypassed her and told him about it directly, she might even be unhappy. "In my opinion, you should talk to her yourself. She has already changed to calling you grandma. If you mention it again, won't it be a sure thing? Then I have to tell you, you have to help me get some wind later." "Sure." Oh Ming agreed without hesitation. Old Mrs. Shen was relieved. She turned to look at Yu Lily and held her hand affectionately. Let's go have breakfast. Lily, I want to eat that chicken foot. Yu Lily smiled and said, all right, let's go. She quickly stopped in her tracks and turned to look at O Ming. Unexpectedly, Shenjilia had already walked over to O Ming and said, leave it to me. You go with Grandma first. Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed. Just as she was about to say something, old Mrs. Shen pulled her back and said, let's go. When he saw Yu Lily being dragged away by his grandmother, the smile on Shenjilia's face finally fell. He turned to O Ming and asked, last night, you were the one who didn't let Lily go, weren't you? Chapter 1256. Secretly? Shenjilia laughed bitterly when he heard that. Even if he had secretly learned from O Ming, he wouldn't have been as successful as this guy. They were both men, but the difference between them was more than just a little. You're such a jerk. Shenjilia reached out and punched O Ming's shoulder. He didn't use too much force. I really don't know what Yu Lily likes about you. How can someone like you have such a good woman who is so devoted to you? The world is really unfair. In his opinion, O Ming was more than a scumbag. He was a very, very scumbag. How could such a scumbag get such a good woman? Shenjilia couldn't help but start to doubt himself. The world has never been fair. The reason Yu Lily chose me in the end is probably because the heavens felt that I was more suitable than you. That's why they rewarded her to me. O Ming's voice sounded a little smug. The boasting in his voice was so annoying that Shenjilia couldn't hold it in. However, the seriousness in his words was enough to move one's heart. No matter what, I'm now her brother. You have to treat her well. If you bully her, I'll fly from the capital to Kingstown to beat you up. Shenjilia patted O Ming's shoulder and tugged at his shirt. Let's go. Don't say that I bullied a blind man. That would be a big sin. O Ming smiled and followed her without saying another word. Yu Lily had been worried that there would be some conflict behind them. But, unexpectedly, the two of them walked in tandem, looking exceptionally harmonious. Yu Lily was finally able to relax. Old Mrs. Shen quickly pulled her into a breakfast restaurant. The few of them sat down together. Yu Lily naturally sat next to O Ming and helped him with the cutlery and food. After ordering the dishes, old Mrs. Shen said what she had prepared in advance. Lily, are you interested in coming back to the capital with Grandma? Lily asked. Yu Lily looked at old Mrs. Shen and said, but I have to go to work tomorrow. If I go now, I won't be able to stay for long. It's fine. You can go next time if you can't go now. I have an idea that I'd like to share with you. Huh? Yu Lily poured a cup of tea for old Mrs. Shen and looked up at her seriously. Lily grew up without parents or family. If one day you get married and you don't have a family, what will you do? Old Mrs. Shen said righteously, Lily, let my family be your maternal family. Be my granddaughter, and let Shenjilia be your older brother, okay? Hearing that, Yu Lily was stunned. Old Mrs. Shen knew that her words were a little sudden, but the desire in her heart grew stronger. She said, when the time comes, I will take you back to the capital and take you to see Shenjilia's parents. If you want, the youngest's father will be your father, and the youngest's mother will be your mother. Is that okay? Yu Lily didn't know how to react. Her heart was beating faster and faster. At a loss, he looked at O Ming. O Ming gently reached out and placed his hand on her thigh. In a low voice, he said, don't be afraid. You can consider it. Granny Shen is doing this for your own good. Her voice became even softer as she said, Granny Shen likes you very much, and she treats you very well. It would be a good idea if you became part of her family. Chapter 1257. But, the Shen family was such a big family. Could they accommodate an outsider like her? But, old Mrs. Shen had already brought Enchanting home. Would the Shens tolerate bringing another person home? But, old Mrs. Shen had already been publicly acknowledged to be brainless. Would anyone believe what she said? Furthermore, Yu Lily had never considered this question before. Old Mrs. Shen's sudden mention of it surprised Yu Lily. At the same time, she felt warmth and gratitude in her heart. Oh Ming gently grasped Yu Lily's hand and said in a low voice, "You don't need to worry about others now. You only need to consider whether you are willing or not." Yu Lily looked at Oh Ming's face. Oh Ming's gaze deepened as he said, "Granny Shen is an elder who is very worthy of respect." In particular, he liked the way he treated Yu Lily so much that he felt comfortable with her. If such an elder could become a real grandmother, it would be different. Oh Ming's voice was very low. Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen knew that they were talking, but they couldn't hear what he was saying. Yu Lily's expression became more and more moved. It looked like she was already starting to waver. "Granny really likes you. Come home with me. In the future, just treat the Shen family in the capital as your family. How does that sound?" Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yu Lily. Her cloudy eyes softened. Yu Lily was still in a trance. When she came back to her senses, her eyes began to burn again. "Can I?" Yu Lily looked at Shenjilia. Shenjilia looked at Yu Lily and replied, "Yes, of course." When he said that, he felt an indescribable sourness in his heart. It was uncomfortable, unhappy, sad, and painful. But, he was destined to never be able to come between her and Oh Ming. In the past few days, although they hadn't made it clear, it was obvious that Yu Lily couldn't let go of Oh Ming. As for Oh Ming, his eyes and hands couldn't move, but he had the guts to chase her all the way to Fujian without anyone by his side. It was clear that Oh Ming's feelings for Yu Lily were very deep. Since that was the case, he didn't want to be the stick that separated them. Even if he couldn't be a man, being an older brother wasn't a bad idea. Looking at Yu Lily, Shenjilia teased, "From now on, I'm your older brother. Call me older brother." Yu Lily burst into laughter. Her eyes were red, and she whispered, "Brother." Her voice wasn't loud, but when it reached Shenjilia's ears, it was enough to shatter his heart into pieces. But at this time, he couldn't lose face in front of his sister and son-in-law. Since he couldn't bring himself to laugh, he decided not to. With a straight face, Shenjilia nodded his head and said, "Well, be a good girl. I'll take care of you in the future. If Oh Ming bullies you, I'll take revenge for you." Old Mrs. Shen was also overjoyed. Her face overflowed with joy, but her cloudy eyes flickered with a silver light. "Good, good, good." Old Mrs. Shen was elated. "You're more like my granddaughter than Enchanting. How good would it have been if I had met you back then?" Enchanting's destiny was fated to be with the Shen family, but her destiny was filled with malice. If they could endure this baleful aura, she would ensure the prosperity of the Shen family. Chapter 1258. Bringing her home was more or less a gamble. Old Mrs. Shen still took it to heart. She sighed and said, "But it's not too late to meet him now. Fortunately, it's you." "Thank you, Grandma." Old Mrs. Shen nodded. She looked at Yu Lily and said with a smile, "You are a good girl. When Oh Ming's hand gets better, you can come to the capital. Grandma will always welcome you." Before Yu Lily could say anything, Oh Ming had already agreed. "Sure. That's settled then. Give me a call when you're coming." "All right." The dishes were soon served. Perhaps because of her good mood, the old lady ate a lot. While eating, she didn't forget to ask Yu Lily to eat. Yu Lily's heart was warm, comfortable, and relaxed. After dinner, Yu Lily and Oh Ming packed their luggage and sent Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen to the airport. Yu Lily watched as Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen passed through the security check. She held onto Oh Ming's hand, feeling a little reluctant to let him go. Looking up at Oh Ming's handsome face, she felt a little disappointed and regretful. She said reluctantly, "They're gone." "Yes, let's go." He looked down at Yu Lily and said softly, "When we're done with our business, we'll go to the capital. I'm just painting at work. It's nothing much. You, on the other hand, have to wait for your hand to recover. Yu Lily looked at his hand. Does it still hurt? It doesn't hurt. Oh Ming allowed her to hold his arm as they walked forward. How can you have nothing to do when you get back? Leave it at work for now. When we get back, we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Civil Affairs Bureau, those 3 words made Yu Lily's heart skip a beat. She lifted her eyes and looked into his eyes. Oh Ming looked down at the same time. Their eyes met, and they saw their own reflections in each other's eyes. Your mother, Shu, act first and report later. Oh Ming didn't feel guilty at all. He continued calmly, when the time comes, it will be too late. No matter how much she objects, it will be useless. If we don't want to, she can't force us to divorce, can she? If your mother finds out, won't she be furious? I'm not angry. I've done things worse than this, Oh Ming said, pursing his lips. And my mother doesn't dislike you as much as you think. She's just very picky with her words, but her temper is actually very good. When Yu Lily heard that, she pouted and muttered, just like you? No, my mom's temper is better than mine. My temper is like my dad's. Don't just look at my dad. If you piss him off, he'll become very fierce. He'll even hit people with a feather duster. When I was young, I was whipped a lot. As he spoke, his body trembled. Yu Lily laughed and patted him on the shoulder. Don't scare me. I'll be traumatized in the future. Oh Ming chuckled and said, that won't happen. My dad and uncle Wen both like you very much. They won't be mean to you. At most, they'll be mean to me. Really? Yes, really. Oh Ming nodded and said, also, it's not just about settling the marriage certificate for my parents. More importantly, we have to make a trip to F-Town. F-Town, the woman who had given birth to her and then abandoned her, was where she was. Chapter 1259. Otherwise, Yu Lily couldn't understand why someone who was willing to pay for a surrogate would abandon her in the end. Oh Ming nodded her head and said, think on the bright side. Don't be so pessimistic. Yu Lily smiled and held his arm as they walked toward the exit of the airport. At a time like this, she could only leave it to fate. After so many years, it wasn't important for Yu Lily to find her biological parents. What if the parents she found turned out to be scum? Yu Lily thought to herself. Soon, she took a taxi with Oh Ming to the station and met up with Wen Fenglin, who had already arrived. The 3 of them took the high-speed train back to Kingstown. Yu Lily slept soundly the entire way. When she woke up, it was already 3 or 4 hours later. The sky was a little dark, and the weather didn't look too good. She accompanied Oh Ming to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor said that he was recovering well. Yu Lily was relieved and returned home alone. Oh Ming's big show hadn't started yet. She couldn't ruin his plan by herself. As soon as she got home, she started a video call with Yi Qianqian. Unexpectedly, Yi Qianqian looked very aggrieved. As soon as she saw Yu Lily, she burst into tears and shouted, Lily, my dear Lily, I now find that your life is really too good. Oh. My dear Lily. At least you have a man who treats you well. My sister. Sigh. What's wrong? Yu Lily saw that Yi Qianqian's face was obviously more haggard than it had been a few days ago. She felt a little sorry for her and asked, could it be that Shenjilia's brother did something bad to your sister again? Sigh. Don't mention it. Shenjilia is still putting on airs. How can his brother be so annoying? They really don't share the same mother. Is the difference so big? Yi Qianqian's voice was full of indignation. I'm so angry. Do you know? Sister. Yi Qianqian's angry words were stopped in her throat by a soft voice. She couldn't say a word. Yu Lily knew that it had to be Yi Yu. Give me a moment. I'll talk to you later. Yi Qianqian lowered her voice and ended the video call. Yi Qianqian put her phone away and turned around. She hurried to Yi Yuyu's bedside and asked, "What's wrong? Help me pack my things. Let's get out of the hospital." Yi Yuyu's voice was still a little weak. She looked at Yi Qianqian with a serious expression. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she instinctively glanced at Yi Yuyu's condition. Both of his hands were badly injured. His left hand was fractured, his right hand was sprained, and his wrist was swollen like a bluish-green peach. His hand was in a cast, and one of his feet was wrapped tightly. He didn't seem to be in a good state. Under such circumstances, he actually wanted to leave the hospital? "No, you still need to stay in the hospital for observation for a while. You stay well. I promised Dad that I would take good care of you. How do you want me to explain to Dad?" As she spoke, Yi Qianqian became even angrier. "Just how big of a business does your mother run? She didn't even come to see her daughter when she was injured to this extent. Is she going to abandon her daughter now that she has a new son?" Yi Yuyu laughed bitterly when she heard that. "She's your mother too." Chapter 1260. If I'd known this would happen, would have insisted. I would have followed that woman. If you had followed Dad, you would have ended up better than with this woman. Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Yuyu. Her heart was filled with sympathy and complicated emotions. "It's been hard on you. Sis, I want to be discharged." "No." It was an unsurprising rejection. But this time, it wasn't Yi Qianqian who said it. It was a man's voice. The voice was as deep as a cello. Turning his head, he saw a tall and straight young man with an intimidating aura. When Yi Qianqian saw him, she was shocked and asked, "It's you?" When Yi Yuyu saw the man, her expression was equally complicated. She greeted him, "GM Li." When Li Jinnan saw Yi Yuyu's expression, he frowned and asked, "How did you end up like this?" Li Jinnan's aura was too strong. He didn't bother to hide the killing intent he exuded. This man didn't seem too happy. Yi Qianqian couldn't help but take a step back. She glanced at Yi Yuyu and asked, "Is this your boss?" Yi Yuyu replied. Her gaze fell on Li Jinnan as she said, "I'm sorry, GM Li. I've let you down. TSK. Look at how polite he is. He's acting as if they're strangers." Yi Qianqian could more or less tell that there was an ambiguous relationship between the two of them. Following that, GM Li would definitely walk up to her with great concern and say with a gentle and kind expression, "It's all right. As long as you're fine." Or, "Given our relationship, do we still need to say such things?" However, this guy wasn't going to play by the rules. When Li Jinnan heard that, his almost perfect features turned cold. He took a step forward and said, "If you know that you've let me down, don't do anything stupid. If you're discharged at this time, do you want all the care I've given you to be fed to the dogs?" What a harsh statement. If Yi Yuyu insisted on being discharged, wouldn't that make her an ingrate? Yi Qianqian secretly gave Li Jinnan a thumbs up. Indeed, when Yi Yuyu heard that, she felt even worse. She looked down and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't want that person to pay for my medical bills anymore." Shen Luo and insisted on paying for her medical expenses. No matter what she or Yi Qianqian said, he insisted on sending money to the hospital regularly. Wasn't it to let her know that he had married her and that he would take responsibility for her? However, she did not want this kind of responsibility. Li Jinnan raised an eyebrow. "That person? Your husband?" The last three words were like thorns, making people feel uncomfortable. Whenever he thought of her, he would remind himself that she was a married woman. "Yes. This is considered a work injury. Our company should pay all the medical expenses for you. I will return all the medical expenses paid by your husband and hire a professional nurse for you. You can rest in peace. When you recover, don't forget to make money for me." Li Jinnan stood tall and straight. His hands were in his pockets. He looked at Yi Yuyu and finally took his hands out of his pockets. When the hand reached out, it was holding a piece of candy. A fruit candy wrapped in colorful reflective paper. When Yi Qianqian saw the candy, her eyes widened. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.